a land thousands of kilometers long but less than 200 wide. Sandwiched between the largest ocean and longest range of mountains in the world, this country has the most extreme shape found anywhere. From the driest of deserts, through scrub, lush temperate rainforests and finally tundra, this country has a geographic diversity to rival any. A fusion of many European cultures and those of the Native Americans, it has emerged from centuries of colonial isolation through independence and a brutal dictatorship to become the most prosperous of all South American nations. Only one country could fit this description. Only one country is Chile. Chile is the most southwesterly country in South America and is famous for its extreme dimensions, with the highest length-to-width ratio of any country. Traversing almost 40 degrees of latitude, the country is home to a diverse set of climates and biomes. In this presentation, I'll look first at Chile's history up to the present, its national organization and state structure and symbols, its physical and human geography, and lastly its economy and culture. If you like these country summary videos, then please be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss future episodes. The meaning of the name of the country is uncertain, but is almost certainly from a Native American word of either Quechua, Pichinche or Mapuche origin. It was first adopted by the Spanish conquistadors in the 16th century. Prior to the arrival of Europeans, the area of today's Chile was inhabited by a number of Native American tribes, the most notable being the Mapuche. The Inca Empire, centered in today's Peru, had been expanding south for several centuries, all the way up to the arrival of the Spanish. But their progress beyond the Central Valley of Chile was blocked by the Mapuche tribes, who were able to resist the Incas despite the latter being much more highly centralized as a nation. The Spanish arrived in the region in the 1530s, and the fertile valley at the center of today's country was chosen as the core of the new colony, with its capital Santiago founded in 1541. The power of the Mapuche was not to be underestimated even against Europeans, however, as the Spanish conquest faced repeated setbacks as a result of native attacks continuing until the end of that century. It wouldn't be until the 19th century that the tribes were finally subjugated. Isolated from the rest of South America by the Atacama Desert in the north, the Andes all along the east, and from the mother country Spain due to its Pacific orientation beyond the Straits of Magellan, the Chilean colony became the most self-sufficient and autonomous of all Spanish possessions in the Americas for the next few centuries. The Napoleonic Wars of Europe that began at the end of the 18th century saw Spain becoming a puppet regime of the French. Seeing this weakness, local elites saw an opportunity to wrest control of the colony from Spain, as did all the other colonies within the Spanish-American Empire at that time. Initially, these elites were resisting the French puppet king, Napoleon's brother Joseph, and supportive of the deposed king's heir. But as events across South America progressed, with many nations now proclaiming full independence from Spain, it was inevitable that Chile would follow suit, and so in 1818, after a prolonged struggle with Spain, and despite disputes between the key patriots of Carrera and O'Higgins, Chile was proclaimed an independent republic. Unlike the United States of America's War of Independence against the British, that saw a genuine revolution in favor of the rights and opportunities of the lower classes, Chile's independence saw little change in the fortunes of the majority, with the land-owning elites maintaining political control of the country. In this regard, it was similar to most of Latin America at that time. As the 19th century progressed, Chile sought to expand its territory. The Mapuche to the south were finally incorporated in a 20-year campaign that ended in 1883, while the Chilean Navy, the most powerful in South America, allowed the country to dominate the southeastern Pacific. To the north, Bolivia had control of the Atacama region through to the coast, while Peru was Chile's greatest rival over dominance of the Pacific. Matters in this region came to a head in the War of the Pacific of 1879–83, with Chile's military on land and sea showing its superiority, defeating both Peru and Bolivia to take control of the Atacama and its rich mineral deposits, and more or less establishing the borders of today. Bolivia's loss of access to the Pacific resulted in it becoming a landlocked country and would seriously impact that nation's future development. Due to its isolation beyond the Straits of Magellan, Chile did not witness the mass immigration from Europe that other nations such as Brazil and Argentina experienced in the latter half of the 19th and early 20th centuries. However, it is notable that a significant settlement of Germans in the south of the country occurred at this time, and these immigrants would go on to influence the country through their organization and training of the army. Trade was chiefly with Britain during this time, and shared knowledge with that country helped to strengthen the Chilean Navy, while the boom in saltpeter mining in the north of the country had many British backers. The French immigrants influenced much of the architectural styles of the buildings of the capital, while the earlier immigration of Basques was significant, resulting in 27% of Chilean surnames being of Basque origin at the end of the 18th century. The 20th century saw Chile stabilize its geographic and economic position, while politically the growing middle and lower classes gained more influence, reducing the power of the landowning classes that had dominated for centuries prior. Apart from a period of dictatorship in the 1920s, there were democratically elected governments during this time. However, as socialist parties grew in power in the 1960s, a period of political polarization that had tragic consequences unfolded. The socialist Salvador Allende was elected president in 1970 and introduced a series of radical socialist programs that led to an economic crisis and protests from foreign investors at the threat of nationalization of key industries, including the important copper mines. President Nixon of the United States then authorized the CIA to infiltrate the country in an attempt to destabilize the government with the intent of removing Allende from office and replacing him with someone more favorable to their interests, much in the way that they had done in Iran in 1953 and more recently in Ukraine in 2014. The US got what they wanted. In 1973, Allende was ousted and killed. The coup was led by General Augusto Pinochet, Commander-in-Chief of the armed forces at that time. The coup was the beginning of 17 years of rule by Pinochet, in which the economy was stabilized and then grew, but at the cost of serious abuses in human rights. Upwards of 40,000 dissidents were rounded up, imprisoned, tortured, or disappeared. Despite honoring the result of a referendum in 1990 to resign as the country's head, he continued to influence Chilean politics up until his death in 2006. To this day, he remains one of the most notorious dictators in recent global history. The country transitioned from dictatorship to democracy between 1990 and 94, with governments being democratically elected since, although the relationship between populace and government continues to be tense until this day. A series of nationwide protests occurred between 2019 and 2020, while an attempt to revise the 1980 constitution, which among other matters would remove some of the undemocratic aspects of the Pinochet era, was overwhelmingly rejected by the populace in a referendum just a few months ago, as it was seen to be too radical. Chile has a bicameral Congress, composed of a 50-seat Senate and a 155-member Chamber of Deputies. Senators are elected for 8-year terms, while deputies are elected every 4 years, in a system similar to proportional representation. The Congress is situated in the port of Valparaiso and not the capital, Santiago. The head of state is the president, elected directly by the public to serve a 4-year term. The office can only be filled by the same person twice, but not across 2 consecutive terms. In the latest Cato Institute's Human Freedom Index, compiled from data up to 2019, the transition to accountable rule following the Pinochet years is confirmed, with Chile being the highest ranked in Latin America for both economic and personal freedom, and a respectable ranking of 28th most free country globally. Chile is a unitary state, with the central government determining law throughout the country. For the purposes of administration, the country is divided into 16 regions, which are further split into 56 provinces, the equivalent of counties, and 348 communes, which are the equivalent of municipalities. The Chilean national flag is composed of white and red bands with a single star centered in a blue field top left. Blue represents the sky, white the snow of the Andes, red the blood spilled to achieve independence, and the star to symbolize progress and honor. The flag was adopted in 1817, 21 years prior to the well-known flag of Texas, to which it has great similarity. The coat of arms contains the colors and elements of the flag in a central shield, supported by a South Andean deer known as a huemal, and a condor, the world's largest flying bird with a range throughout the Andes. The motto translated means by reason or by force. Chile is one of the most remarkable countries in the world geographically. As any child who begins to study geography through an atlas knows, one of the first things they'll notice is that almost impossibly thin-looking country hanging on to most of the western edge of South America. Chile is second only to Brazil as the tallest of all countries, with a north-south extent of 4,300 kilometers. But sandwiched in a narrow coastal strip between the Andes Mountains and the Pacific Ocean, Chile is comparatively extremely narrow, with an average width of only 175 kilometers. Such an extremity of dimension can be seen when one considers the time it would take to traverse the country. Traveling east-west at its widest point in the northern Atacama, the journey of 469 kilometers would take only around 6 hours by road. In contrast, the 4,000-kilometer-plus road journey from the extreme north to as far as one could travel in the south, which is still not the bottom of Chile, would take over a week if traveling 8 hours a day. Why is this country so long and thin? Well, there are two reasons. The first is the Andes mountain range. It is the longest and second highest in the world, and so historically prior to air travel, crossing these mountains was difficult, with the consequence of a lack of ability of a government to project power over such a range. For most of their length, only Argentina offers a rival power, and in that country most of the population was focused in the north, with the south, that is Patagonia, being a largely uninhabited and frigid desert. In the north, where Chile borders with Peru and Bolivia, the mountains are not as steep, and so this was more of a contentious area for claims of sovereignty between these countries, as we saw in the section on history. The second reason is the proximity of the Pacific Ocean to the mountains. Prior to air travel, the quickest and most efficient way of transporting goods and people was by ship, and so Chile, with access to thousands of kilometers of coast, was easily able to project its power north and south through its navy and commercial fleet. Crossing the Andes, by comparison, was a Herculean task, and so we have the extremely long and narrow country of today as a result. The reason for such a long chain of mountains being right up against an ocean can be explained in geology. The Nazca tectonic plate, expanding outwards, hits the South American plate, and at this boundary is pushed down under it in a process known as subduction. This process has been going on for millions of years, and over such time has led to the buckling of the South American plate, as well as the formation of volcanoes, to create the Andes Mountains. As the Nazca plate is pushed down, it creates a deep ocean trench directly off the coast, and so in profile, the country of Chile consists of a deep ocean, coastline, a relatively low coastal range of mountains, a narrow plain, and then very tall mountains. But this geographic situation has another consequence, and that is heightened tectonic activity. Subduction zones have historically produced the largest earthquakes, and Chile, being the site of a long and continuous subduction zone of the Nazca under the South American plate, accounts for a third of the 20 most powerful earthquakes in history. The Valdivia earthquake of 1960 in the southern part of Chile was estimated to be as high as 9.6 on the Richter scale and is the largest to have ever been recorded anywhere. As well as causing thousands of fatalities within the region from the shaking and resultant tsunami, that wave traveled across the Pacific, devastating the city of Hilo in Hawaii and killing 61 people there, and reached as far as Japan, where fatalities were also reported. Subduction zones also produce volcanoes, and Chile is home to 19 active mounts, with the most occurring in the south of the country. Spanning 4,300 kilometers north to south, Chile covers a remarkable band of latitudes from 17 degrees south of the equator at its top to 56 degrees south at its base. Consequently, a wide number of climate zones and resultant biomes are found in the country. In the far north, we have the driest of all deserts, the Atacama. The rainfall is so low here that some weather stations have not reported rain falling for 25 years or more. There are two reasons why this area is so dry. The first of these is that the Andes Mountains, rising above 6,300 meters to the east, block almost all the moist trade winds that blow down in a southwesterly direction from the equator during summer. In the absence of these mountains, the northern region of Chile would have experienced a rainy season during the summer, typical of such a latitude, but the Andes prevent this wet season. The second factor is the presence of the Humboldt Ocean current, which brings cold water up from the mid-latitudes of the Pacific all the way to the equator via the coast of Chile and Peru. The presence of this cold ocean means that any winds blowing in from the Pacific have little moisture, and moving on to warmer land, any moisture is retained in the warming air as vapor. As we move south, it takes a considerable distance before we encounter any noticeable rain in the central part of Chile. Here we find a Mediterranean climate of warm dry summers and wet winters. All the rain comes off the Pacific through winter westerly winds and storms as a result of the northward drift of high pressure over the ocean. In summertime, the high pressure travels south, blocking any depressions and keeping the area dry. This Mediterranean climate produces scrub-like conditions as a natural biome, but in the highly densely populated region is now mostly given over to productive farmland. Since 2010, there has been an exceptional drought affecting much of Chile, but particularly in this densely populated central zone. A persistent high pressure over the eastern Pacific for the last decade has reduced normal annual rain by as much as 80% in some areas. As we continue south, the summer high-pressure zones lose their influence, and so rain is found year-round in this oceanic climate zone. Because the wet Pacific winds meet the Andes Mountains as soon as they reach land, the air is pushed upward and cooled, leading to almost all of its moisture being deposited before passing into the desert of Patagonia on the other side. Consequently, southern Chile sees some of the highest rainfall in the world outside of the tropics, and this much rain leads to highly verdant conditions in the form of temperate rainforests of beech, laurel, cedar, and the national tree Araucaria, also known as the Chilean pine or monkey puzzle. In general, this region, so isolated from the rest of the world from similar climate types, is home to many species of plants and animals not found anywhere else. As we approach the southern tip of Chile, the land breaks up into an extensive array of fjords and islands, the results of past glaciations. In this region and in the higher ground within the previous zone, the oceanic climate gives way to a subpolar form of this climate of cool summers instead of warm, and eventually to a mild tundra climate where summer day-night temperatures remain below 10 Celsius, preventing the growth of trees, leading to a barren landscape of low-lying shrubs and grass. The word mild is used to describe this tundra climate not because it is especially pleasant, but to contrast it with the severe winters found in the traditional tundra of the Arctic. Here in Tierra del Fuego, the southernmost extent of South America, the ever-present ocean winds keep winter temperatures mostly above freezing. Such winds, known as the Roaring Forties and Furious Fifties, were the bane of any ship rounding the Horn, that is, traversing the waters at the extreme southern point of Chile and the continent of South America, Cape Horn. Prior to the building of the Panama Canal, any ship traveling from the Atlantic to the Pacific had to brave these treacherous waters, and the area has gone down in global maritime history as one of the most infamous. Last but not least, a word on Rapa Nui. The fascination of this, one of the most isolated inhabited islands in the world, and its pre-Columbian history of massive stoneheads, resource depletion and ecological collapse would take up a video in itself. The Chileans call the island Isla de Pascua, literally Easter Island. It was annexed by Chile in 1888 and is administered today as its own autonomous commune within the Valparaiso region. It is just over 3,500 kilometers from the mainland. Chile's population at the time of this video is estimated at 18.5 million, making it the 66th most populous nation in the world. Most of this population is found in the central part of Chile, from where the country expanded historically, with 40%, about 7 million people, living within the greater metro area of the capital Santiago. The second largest city is the historical port of Valparaiso, just 90 minutes by road from the capital, and whose metro area numbers about 1 million in population. Concepcion, some 6 hours drive south, is the third largest city with just under 1 million. Although there is no official language within Chile, the de facto is Spanish, spoken by virtually all its inhabitants and used in official government documents. It is the result of its original foundation as a colony of Spain and the centuries of its establishment prior to the immigrants of other European countries settling here. The dialect is noticeably different from other countries within South America, perhaps due to its relative isolation of the preceding centuries, or the influence of significant numbers of later immigrants speaking different languages. Many Native American languages have survived, with the greatest number being that of the Mapuche people. Like all Latin American countries, the population of Chile is a mix of European and Amerindian. What proportions self-identify as or are independently estimated to be white, meaning European-only descent, mestizo or mixed race, or Amerindian varies by survey, but the surveys suggest 50 to 60% as white, 30 to 40% mestizo, and less than 10% Amerindian. Chile's economy stands out in many ways. With an estimated GDP in nominal terms of $310 billion in 2022, the country's economy ranks as the 45th largest in the world. Split among its relatively small population, this produces the highest GDP per capita in all of Latin America. It is one of the lowest tax economies within the OECD group of developed countries globally, and has consistently ranked as a business-friendly country while also having the lowest income inequality index within Latin America. The economy has grown rapidly since the start of the 1980s, being now 5 times larger than it was 4 decades ago. In 1980, Chile introduced the world's first private national pension scheme, watched by many eyes within the developed world. For decades, the success of this scheme, which outperformed traditional state pension schemes in other nations, was seen as a model to follow. But in the last 15 years or so, the scheme has required reform as global yields within markets have reduced in that era of low interest rates. The largest sector within the Chilean economy is mining, with the world's largest reserves of copper located in the north of the country. Chile produces almost a third of all the world's copper, is the largest producer of iodine, and the world's second highest in lithium and molybdenum. The Chilean mining industry made international news in 2010 when 33 miners were trapped almost a kilometer underground for 69 days. Despite incredible odds, all 33 were rescued, one at a time, within a specially made capsule hoisted through a borehole drilled from the surface. Fishing in the deep, rich waters of the Eastern Pacific is found in all inhabited coastal regions, with many fish exported. You've probably all seen Chilean sea bass on the menu somewhere. Agriculture within the central part of the country is an important sector, with the Mediterranean climate in this region favoring the growth of grapes. Chilean wines have become well respected and popular around the world. With a business-friendly environment, the service sector, and in particular finance, has grown substantially in recent decades to become a major sector within the economy. Another key service sector is tourism. Despite its remoteness from the world, the country, with its vast array of unspoilt habitats, attracts several million tourists each year. Chilean culture is, like all those of Latin America, a blend of European and Native American, with Spanish dominating the European and Mapuche the native side. Basque, German, British, Croatian, Arab, Palestinian, and French influences can be observed as a result of later waves of immigration from their respective countries. Chile has had two Nobel Prize winners for literature, poets Pablo Neruda and Gabriela Mistral. Chile has also had a fair share of notable novelists, including José Donoso and Isabel Allende. In cinema, Alejandro Jodorowsky established a cult following with his avant-garde works in the 1960s and 70s, including a 14-hour epic screenplay of Frank Herbert's classic sci-fi Dune that was never made. Chile's most internationally famous star, however, is probably Pedro Pascal, notable for his role in Game of Thrones and the lead in The Mandalorian and Narcos. The Atacama Desert is not only the source of Chile's greatest wealth in the form of mines, but it is the site of one of the world's greatest scientific riches. The constantly cloudless sky, coupled with very stable atmosphere, no nearby light pollution from cities, and high altitude, make this location possibly the best in the world for astronomical observations. And so it is here that we find the largest number of modern, world-class telescopes, operated by international and domestic scientific institutions. Chile's greatest cultural treasure is, in my opinion, the beauty and diversity of the country's nature. That said, I believe that a special mention should be made of the UNESCO World Heritage Site of the historic quarter of Valparaiso. The architecture in this area is unlike any other, demonstrating the fusion of European cultures that participated in the port's growth in the late 19th century, and in microcosm could represent the story of this, the most remote of all continental nations. And that's Chile. I hope you enjoyed this presentation of its history, geography, economy, and culture. Please like and share this video if you enjoyed it or found it useful, and please let me know your thoughts in the comments, especially if you're from this country and if I missed out anything that you feel is important. If you haven't already done so, then please click the subscribe button and the bell notification icon so you don't miss future episodes. You can also support future development of this channel by becoming a Patreon supporter for as little as $2 a month. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.